Welcome to Episode 4 of the Ministry of Motion Pictures podcast. The Ministry of Motion Pictures exists to advance the art of Christian film for the glory of God. I'm your host, Todd Schaefer.
If your film doesn't make any money, guess what? It's not having any impact either.
In this episode, screenwriter Sean Paul Murphy is with us again, and he gives us his experienced perspective on the current state of the Christian film industry. He also encourages filmmakers to be very clear on the goals of their films, and he talks about the difficulties facing filmmakers in the current streaming marketplace.
The Christian film business going now, and what we're hearing from the young filmmakers.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, everyone seems to think that Christian business is changing. But if you look at the theatrical films, it's still the same films. You know, and they're still marketed in the same way. And it comes down to church support. If you're going to make a film that's going to make $50 million or $70 million at the box office, you're going to do it because the churches are behind you.
Right.
You know, and I think I was mentioning before, you know, churches are not going to support 10 films a year.
Right.
They're going to support a handful of them, maybe one or two. So usually there's really only room for 3 films to get that full support a year. You know.
But it seems,
and it also hurts that, like last year, all the main Christian films came out within like 3 weeks of each other around
right.
Easter.
Exactly.
You know, so.
But you go some years and there's none.
Yeah. I think one thing is important, and a lot of Christians ignore this, at least with their first film or two, is that money is very important. And, you know, and it's a great indicator of something. If your film doesn't make any money, guess what? Yeah. It's not having any impact either.
That's right.
You know, because if people are seeing it, if people are seeking it out, it's generating income. You know, so if you put out a film and then you go and look on like all the websites where movies are sold and there are no user comments on it, you know, it's not making any money. Guess what? You've made a film that no one's seen. Mm-hmm. You know, so I don't care how pure your motives are.
That's right.
You know, if no one sees your movie,
yeah.
You know, it's the old tree falls in the forest doesn't make a sound. Mm-hmm. You know, so you really have to be aware of the business. And there's a lot of people that look at the business as being shabby. And, you know, it wasn't something I concerned myself with initially at first either. It wasn't my, primary goal. And, but, you know, you really, unless people are seeing your movie, it's like it doesn't exist. And I was being called quite a bit by people to write movies, and I would ask them, do you have distribution lined up? Well, no, we'll find a distributor later. I'm like, oh well. Or, who's going to be in it? You know, because if they tell me it's, if it's the guy who's calling me on the phone, that's another problem with
and
our
his
genre.
wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is the whole one-man-bandism. And, you could even say, look to Kendricks, Dave Watt, even at the top and all the way down to the very bottom, there's a lot of these people who are writing, directing, and starring in their own movies. And to me, don't tell me that this is all about Jesus. If you're writing in it, you're directing it, you're producing in it, and you're starring it, somehow I think you're the star, not Jesus. And this is... If I'm talking about my blog, the Faith-Based Ghetto, what I'm really asking the people, Christian filmmakers, to do is look at what they think they're accomplishing and look at their own motives. Because I break it down, you're either making films that are evangelistic, that are aimed at bringing the Lord to people who don't know Him. 2, you're either making films just to entertain Christians. Or 3, you're bringing the Christian worldview out into the mainstream world. Mm. And you could do either one. You could do either of those 3, but those are the options.
Yeah.
But what makes me mad is that when people are saying, we're making films to reach people for the Lord, and then you're putting it behind the Christian paywall somewhere, where no non-Christian will ever see it. Even the big Christian films that make tons of money at the theaters, it's still, the audience is 95% Christian.
Right. That's right.
You got to ask yourself, what is your goal?
Yeah.
So what is your goal? And then write the films that will achieve that goal and work with the people that can help you reach those goals. Because certain people are only interested in doing things a certain way. And I know if you listen to this, I'm sounding cynical. I'm sounding like there's maybe a lot of ulterior motives to a lot of filmmakers, a lot of production companies, and a lot of production companies are not necessarily honest. A lot of distributors aren't necessarily honest, or if they are honest, they're inept.
Yeah.
I think you've experienced that.
Yeah.
So, and not to question anyone's motives in that.
Right.
Just
Well, for sure.
the effort is wasted if no one sees your movie.
Right.
So when people call me and offer me an assignment, I want to know that someone's going to see it. Mm-hmm. I could say that, like, literally, and this may have changed subsequently, this film, Open Your Eyes, I got paid more than the film grossed.
Incredible.
Yeah. So I will not put myself in that position again.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who will take that, who will say that. But I'm like, I don't want to do that to people.
Right. Exactly.
It's...
So where do the studio's faith-based departments sit in all this? In the faith, like Sony Provident, Lionsgate has I forget what it's called. They have their own faith-based kind of branch,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently all the majors have some sort of faith-based division.
Mm-hmm.
So how do they fit into this picture of Christian film?
I think it's dollars and cents. So I'm sure there's some sincerity amongst some of the people. And here's the thing, and it's something you can't ever totally discount, is the fact that even if the guy who's running the show, like the executive at Sony, the executive at Paramount, this is just money to him, amongst the filmmakers, amongst the people, there are always people who are honest believers, who are trying to get a message,
right,
who are trying to do the right thing, even if it's just dollars and cents to the other guys.
Yeah, sure.
So that's the dilemma of the filmmaker. But I'm sure I hear more about a firm than anything else, and I'm sure they really want to do films that'll touch people,
mm-hmm.
But they have a pattern of kind of films that they want to make, and it's true of these other companies. They like to make films, like a firm likes to make films that are based on books, true stories, biblical films, things that are, they don't want, spec screenplays about, fictional crisis of faith for fictional pastors or, And what's really frustrating is when I go to these festivals, I'll see these people and they're making films in the, the $20,000 to $120,000 film range, and they're making edgy films. Like a couple of years ago, I was at the Christians Making Movies Film Festival in New Jersey. And this one woman made an end times film, and she shot it at her church, and it was really edgy and it was really intelligent. It was like something I hadn't seen, but because it didn't follow all the tropes, it didn't follow the genre correctly, they wouldn't even show it at her church.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And I've a couple other filmmakers, including a guy who went to Towson. They're making films, they're making edgy films, and. I'm Facebook friends with a lot of people who are making movies, and they're in festivals, they're winning awards, but their films are never going to break through in the Christian market. But they're too religious to make it in the secular market. So, really, if you don't, that's why people are saying, well, the Christian film market's changing. No, it's not. People are legitimately making films. They are incorporating Christian worldview, and it's not enough to have a Christian worldview, because you would say any film on TCM has a Christian worldview, because it associated that, in the sense that it's not pagan, and in the sense that it's not, that it is reflective of, the production code at the time. So even though there's never, they may not say Jesus, they may not say God, but it's a reflective of the American Christian ethos, a lot of these films, I applaud the filmmakers, but I just keep thinking that they're just going to be picked up by the bottom dwellers, these kind of unscrupulous small distributors. And it's not just Christian distributors. Pretty much all distributors are, except the majors, they're all kind of crooks to one degree or another, in the sense that they're not, and I wouldn't even call them crooks, they just don't care if you ever make any money.
Right.
There are so many tricks. I mean, when I was originally, looking at like my secular film, there was a constant fear amongst independent filmmakers at the time that they had these open-ended expense deals. So it's sort of like it's going to be an 80-20 deal, but we got to get our money back first, and on the P&A, and that they were just going to run up all the costs, and you're never going to see a cent.
Right.
And that was true.
Yeah.
But and to allay your fears, a lot of companies started offering like we're going to limit our expenses to like $50,000 or $25,000, and it's 80-20, and you get the 80 after that thing, and everybody signs that deal. Say, "Oh, right, that's great," because now they can only do that. But what they don't realize is that nowadays these companies will just aggregate your film, with like 15 other films that they get, and sell it to Netflix or sell it to like Prime, and they'll get $10,000 a film. And that's all. That means that's all the money that's ever going to come in on those movies.
Yeah, for sure.
And they don't have to pay you a cent because you didn't reach that $20,000 or that $50,000 threshold.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, think about it.
That's scary.
Yeah, it is scary. So it's sort of like now they don't even have to give you the false bookkeeping anymore.
Huh.
That's
true.
And with the majors, because I know people who have gotten deals with the majors. The deals are, they don't have to cheat you. The deals are kind of just onerous enough that, but at least they're going to usually give you an advance. And if there's any one word of advice for any filmmaker out there, do not do the mistake that so many people do, is where you're dealing with a distributor and they're going to say, well, we could give you $50,000 advance and then we'll split the profits of the movie 40-60, or we'll give you no advance and we'll split it 80-20. Whatever you do, take the advance.
Yes.
Even if it's $5,000 and it's the difference between 60-40 or 80-20. Because 99.999% of the time, the only money you are ever going to see is the advance.
Yeah.
So never turn the advance aside for higher profit.
Yeah, for sure. Great advice.
Yeah, so, because there are a few people who have become really successful, but, it's not going to happen. We're in a market right now that's in a state of confusion. We're at a place where supply far outranks demand, and income from streaming has come nowhere near close to replacing the income that filmmakers got from DVD sales. Mm-hmm. And that has completely fallen through the floor. Yeah. So, essentially what people are doing now is, you get your investors, you make a movie, you get in some film festivals, you maybe win a few awards, you do okay. Eventually, though, after a year or two, and you don't have any offers, you're going to end up sending your film to distributors, one of them is going to take it, and they're not going to offer you an advance, because why should they? They get like probably 10 films in every day, and they can choose whatever ones they want. And they know you're desperate. If they know you've been in film festivals for 2 years and you're still looking at them, They know they can say, or they can give you $5,000 or $2,000, $1,000. So essentially, what they're doing is they're getting all this product for free, and what they're going to do is end up aggregating it with other products. So essentially, it costs them nothing to do what they're doing, other than their staff, which is usually just them or one or two other people.
Wow.
And you're never going to see any money. I will say one good thing about PureFlix is that they've been getting paying some filmmakers, from what I hear, decent size advance for exclusive screening things. But what they have not been hearing, at least from the people I've talked to, they've not been paying them what the films cost. Like you were talking about a deal with Netflix where they're going to give you 100% of your cost plus 15%, and they own it. What they're giving these people is a quarter of what they cost to make the film.
Yeah.
And after a point, after you've had this film done for 2 years, a quarter, it sounds pretty good. And you think, well, I'm going to capitalize on this, but now you've given up your exclusive screening, your exclusive streaming, and then no other distributor. Now, once you've signed that off, nobody's going to give you another deal for everything else. Why are they going to give you a deal someone's going to give you a deal for TV and DVD? Probably not. When streaming is a major source of income and they're not going to have access to that money. And once again, I know we're talking to Christian filmmakers, but The director of 21 Eyes said something very wise to me back on the commercial business days. He goes, I love making films, but won't make them for free, because if I make them for free, I won't be able to afford to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And
that's a great point.
Also, everyone says, if one person sees this film and turns their life to the Lord, it was worth the cost.
Right.
You know what? That may be true, but wouldn't it be better if 1 million people saw it and turned their life to the Lord?
Yeah.
And
allowed you to continue doing this.
And allows you to continue making these films.
Yes.
If you want to find out more about this veteran screenwriter, head over to his website at www.seanpaulmurphyville.blogspot.com. There you'll find a complete list of his films, numerous articles of Christian filmmaking, samples of 2 books he's written, and links to many other interviews he's been featured on. That's www.seanpaulmurphyville.blogspot.com. Sean and Deborah, thank you for opening your home to me and sharing your experiences with us. My next guest will be Dr. Mark Coppinger, who is a professor of Christian philosophy and ethics at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, where he leads a program in theology and the arts. And he's taught aesthetics since the 1970s, when he began as a philosophy professor at Wheaton. He has a particular interest in Christian film, and he happens to lead my advisory board for Glorious Films. And over the years, Mark has become a great friend and has offered me a lot of wise counsel. You can find the Ministry of Motion Pictures on the web at www.ministryofmotionpictures.org. There you'll find show notes for this episode and links to the previous podcast with Sean Paul Murphy.